Grandma was sitting in her recliner with a paper napkin twisted into a rope between her fingers when the home health nurse flipped open the blue visit log on the coffee table. My mother had just finished telling everyone that my sister was burning herself out caring for Grandma 3 days a week, and my sister Brittany actually lowered her eyes like she was too humble to accept praise. Then the nurse ran her finger down the signatures, stopped, and said, "That's strange, because Margaret told me no one comes on Tuesdays." The room went so quiet I could hear the clock above the china cabinet ticking over the lie. My name is Natalie Mercer. I'm 33 years old, and in that 1 second I realized my family had not only erased the work I was doing, they had been paying my sister for pretending to do it. The worst part was how normal everyone tried to make it feel. My mother, Linda Mercer, reached for the log first, like if she touched the pages fast enough she could change what was written there. My father, Paul, cleared his throat and looked toward the window. Brittany sat on the couch in a cream sweater I knew she had bought with the caregiver money, her phone face down beside her thigh, her lips pressed into a small, offended line. Grandma, Margaret Ellison, was 86 and smaller than she used to be, but not confused the way they liked to imply. She forgot names sometimes. She repeated stories. But she knew who sat with her when her legs hurt. She knew who brought the low-sodium soup she hated but ate anyway. She knew who washed her hair in the kitchen sink because the shower scared her after the fall, and she knew Tuesdays. "Tuesdays are quiet," Grandma said softly. My mother turned toward her too quickly. "Mom, honey, Brittany comes on Tuesdays. You probably nap." Grandma looked at the nurse, then at me. "No," she said. "Natalie comes after work when she can. Brittany doesn't like my stares." Brittany made this little laugh, sharp and fake. "Grandma, that's not true." But I was staring at the log. There were Brittany's initials in neat little loops. BMBMBM. 42 dates according to the nurse's finger, all written in the same blue pen. Tuesdays, Thursdays, some Saturdays. Dates when I had the grocery receipts in my glove compartment. Dates when I had texts from my mother saying, "Can you stop by? Brit's overwhelmed." Dates when Grandma had called me because she had dropped her pill organizer, or because the fitted sheet had come loose, or because she couldn't remember if the chicken in the fridge was still safe. For 8 months, I had been the backup plan that quietly became the whole plan, and Brittany had been the story. That was how our family worked. Brittany got the title. I got the labor. When we were kids, she was sensitive, so I had to give her the bigger bedroom after our aunt gifted us matching comforters. When she failed out of community college, she was finding herself, while I was told not to mention my scholarship because it would make her feel behind. When Grandma's hip broke the previous winter, Brittany cried in the hospital hallway for exactly 12 minutes, and my mother wrapped both arms around her like she was the injured one. I was the one who learned how to adjust the walker. I was the one who labeled the medication bottles with colored tape. I was the one who sat beside Grandma at 2:13 in the morning while she hallucinated that Grandpa was standing in the doorway asking for his brown coat. But at Sunday dinner, my mother would say, "We don't know what we'd do without Brittany." And everyone would nod, even me sometimes, because peace in my family had always required my silence. The nurse, a calm woman named Denise Patel, didn't look dramatic. She didn't accuse anyone. She just held the log with both hands and said, "Mrs. Ellison receives assistance funds based on documented caregiver visits. If these entries aren't accurate, we need to correct them." My father finally spoke. "I'm sure it's just a misunderstanding." Brittany sat up straighter. "Exactly. Grandma forgets things." Grandma's face changed. It was small, but I saw it. The hurt landed behind her eyes before she lowered them to her lap. My grandmother, who had once run church bake sales like military operations, was being treated like an unreliable witness in her own living room. That did something to me. I walked to the hallway, picked up my work tote, and pulled out the wrinkled pharmacy bag from that morning. Inside were Grandma's prescription receipts, a pack of adult briefs, 2 cans of peaches, and the little notebook where I kept her blood pressure readings because Brittany once said spreadsheets made her anxious. I placed it on the coffee table beside the visit log. Then I took my phone out and opened the album titled Grandma. Not because I had been collecting evidence, because for months I had been sending my mother proof of care disguised as updates. A photo of Grandma's swollen ankle on a Tuesday, a picture of the new shower chair I assembled on a Thursday, a video of Grandma laughing while I changed her sheets on a Saturday Brittany had supposedly been there from 10 to 2. My mother looked at the screen and whispered, "Natalie, don't start." That sentence told me everything. Not, "What is this?" Not, "Brittany, explain." Don't start. Like the problem was not the lie. The problem was me letting light touch it. I looked at my mother and said, "Start what?" Her mouth tightened. "This isn't the time." Denise Patel closed the visit log gently, but she didn't move away from it. "Actually, this is exactly the time. I'm required to report discrepancies. Before I do that, I need to understand who has been providing care and when." Brittany stood up so fast her phone slid off the couch. "This is ridiculous. I've done plenty." "Then say what?" I said. She blinked at me. "Excuse me? What did you do on Tuesday, March 12th? You signed from 9 to 1. My father's face went gray. Brittany laughed again, but it cracked in the middle. "You expect me to remember one random day months ago?" "I remember," Grandma said. Everyone turned. Grandma's hands were shaking, so I sat beside her and took one. Her skin felt paper thin and cold. "That was the day the furnace man came," she said. "Natalie took off work because I was scared to be alone with a stranger in the basement. She brought me tomato soup, too much pepper." Despite everything, I almost smiled. Denise wrote something on her clipboard. My mother stepped forward. "Mom, you don't need to get involved." Grandma's head lifted. "I live here," she said. "I am involved." It was the strongest I'd heard her voice in weeks. Brittany grabbed her purse. "I'm not staying here to be attacked." "No one attacked you," I said. "We asked why you signed 42 visits you didn't make." Her eyes flashed. "You always do this." I actually laughed. "Do what? Show up." "You act like a martyr," she snapped. "You make everyone feel guilty because you choose to run around doing things no one asked you to do." Grandma flinched. That was when something old and heavy inside me finally shifted. For years, I had accepted the family translation. Brittany felt deeply. Brittany needed patience. Brittany didn't mean it. But there was no gentle way to translate this. She had been cashing checks while Grandma sat alone wondering why no one came on Tuesdays. "No one asked me?" I said. "Mom asked me constantly. Dad asked me. Grandma asked me because she needed help, and you signed your name after I did the work." My mother hissed, "Natalie!" Denise looked at her. "Mrs. Mercer, please don't interfere." My mother froze, offended by the authority in Denise's voice. Then my father said the thing that broke me more than Brittany had. "Maybe we can just pay Natalie back for some gas and groceries and move on." Move on, like it was a parking ticket. I stared at him. This was the man who taught me to balance a checkbook at 14 and told me that honesty mattered even when no one was watching. Now he was looking at fraud in his mother-in-law's care records and trying to smooth it over with gas money. "How much was she paid?" I asked. Brittany's face went blank. My mother looked away. "How much?" I repeated. Dad rubbed both hands over his knees. "The stipend is $600 a month." "For how long?" No one answered. Denise did. "The care plan began 8 months ago. $600 a month. $4,800. I thought of the overdraft fee I got after buying Grandma's compression socks and groceries in the same week my car insurance came out. I thought of Brittany posting brunch photos while I sat in urgent care with Grandma, after she had a dizzy spell. I thought of my mother telling me not to keep score, while apparently someone else had been submitting one. Grandma began to cry. Not loudly, just 2 tears slipping down the soft folds of her face. "I thought I was being a burden," she whispered. "I thought Brittany was tired because of me." I put my arm around her shoulders, and for a moment I didn't care who saw my anger. "You are not the burden," I said. Brittany muttered, "Oh my God," like Grandma's tears were an inconvenience. Denise stood. "I'll need copies of any documentation you have, Natalie, texts, receipts, photos, and Mrs. Ellison, I'll speak with you privately before I leave." My mother's eyes snapped to mine. Panic replaced irritation. "Natalie," she said softer now, "don't give her anything yet. Let's talk as a family first." There it was again. Family meant silence. Family meant protecting Brittany from consequences. Family meant Grandma's loneliness could be negotiated if the truth made dinner uncomfortable. I opened my phone, selected the album, and tapped share. My mother lunged one step forward, and Grandma, still crying, tightened her fingers around mine and said, "Send it." I sent everything. Not just the photos, the receipts, the screenshots, the texts from Mom saying, "Britt can't today, can you cover? And don't tell Grandma Brittany is sick of being guilted." The voicemail transcription from Dad asking if I could swing by because he and Mom had dinner plans. With every attachment, Brittany's breathing got louder. Denise's phone chimed again and again. She didn't react beyond a small nod. "Thank you." My mother looked at me like I had slapped her. "You have no idea what you're doing," she said. For once, I did. Denise asked everyone except Grandma to step into the kitchen so she could speak with her privately. Brittany refused at first, claiming Grandma would be confused and manipulated, until Denise said, "If Mrs. Ellison requests someone present, that is her choice, not yours." Grandma looked at me. "Natalie stays." So I stayed. Mom, Dad, and Brittany filed into the kitchen, where their whispers immediately sharpened into angry hisses behind the swinging door. Denise sat in the armchair across from Grandma. "Mrs. Ellison, I need to ask you some questions. Do you understand?" Grandma wiped her cheeks with a twisted napkin. "Yes." "Do you feel safe in your home?" Grandma hesitated. That hesitation terrified me more than any answer. "Mostly," she said. Denise's pen paused. "Can you explain mostly?" Grandma looked toward the kitchen door. Her voice dropped. "I don't like when they tell me what I remember." I swallowed hard. Denise nodded gently. "Has anyone pressured you to say Brittany was here when she was not?" "No," Grandma said. Then, after a second, "But Linda tells people I forget, so I stopped arguing." The words landed like stones. I had watched it happen, but hearing Grandma name it made me feel sick. Every time Mom laughed off a correction, every time Brittany rolled her eyes and said, "There goes Grandma again," every time Dad changed the subject rather than admit the women in his family were rewriting reality around an old lady because it was convenient. Denise asked about meals, medication, bathing, transportation. Grandma answered clearly. Sometimes she searched for a date, and I offered one only when Denise asked me to. But about Tuesdays, Grandma was firm. "No, Brittany," she said, "not Tuesdays." When Denise finished, she closed her folder. "I'm going to file a report with the agency. They may contact Adult Protective Services. There will also be a review of payments." Grandma nodded like she'd expected nothing less. Then she turned to me. "Will they be angry?" The kitchen went silent as if they were listening. I wanted to lie. I wanted to say no. They'd be ashamed. They'd apologize. They'd finally see her. But I was done decorating ugly things. "Yes," I said, "probably." Grandma's chin trembled. "I don't want trouble." "You didn't make it." The kitchen door swung open. Mom stepped out first, pale and rigid. "Denise, before you file anything, you should know Natalie has always had resentment toward her sister." I stared at her. She didn't even look at me. "There's history here. Natalie exaggerates. She likes to be needed." Dad came in behind her, avoiding my eyes. Brittany folded her arms. And Grandma tells Natalie whatever she wants to hear. Denise's expression cooled. Are you suggesting Mrs. Ellison is lying? Brittany opened her mouth, then closed it. Mom chose a different knife. I'm suggesting my mother is vulnerable, and Natalie may be influencing her. Grandma's hand jerked in mine. I stood up. You're really doing this? Mom finally faced me. I'm protecting this family. No, I said. You're protecting Brittany. Brittany scoffed. From what? Your little folder of grocery receipts? From consequences, I said. From paying back money she didn't earn. From admitting Grandma was alone while all of you praised her. Dad's voice was low. Natalie, enough. I turned on him. Where were you on all those Tuesdays? He flinched. Golf? I asked. Lunch with clients? Or sitting at home while Mom texted me? His face reddened. Watch your tone. There it was, the emergency exit of guilty parents everywhere. My tone. Not the theft, not the neglect. My tone. Denise slipped the visit log into her bag. I'll be in touch. Mom stepped into her path. You can't take that. It belongs to the care file, Denise said, and I can. After she left, nobody spoke for a full 10 seconds. Then Brittany pointed at me and said, You just ruined my life. Grandma answered before I could. No, sweetheart, she said, voice shaking but clear. You signed my name away 42 times. Natalie just opened the book. Brittany stared at Grandma like betrayal had just learned to speak. Then she burst into tears. Not quiet tears like Grandma's, big, shaking, theatrical sobs that sent my mother rushing across the room. Look what you've done, Mom snapped, gathering Brittany against her. I almost laughed again, but it would have come out wrong. Grandma was trembling in her recliner. A fraud report had just walked out the door, and somehow Brittany was the injured party, because accountability had touched her shoulder. Dad stood near the fireplace, one hand braced on the mantel. We need to fix this before it gets worse. It's already worse, I said. He looked at me then, really looked, and for a second I saw fear. Not for Grandma, not for me, for the family name, for church friends, for neighbors, for whatever version of us he thought still existed if nobody said the ugly parts out loud. Mom stroked Brittany's hair. She needed that money. I went still. What? Mom's face changed, like she realized she had stepped past the lie and into the reason for it. Dad closed his eyes. Brittany pulled back. Mom. I looked from one to the other. She needed it for what? No one answered. Grandma whispered, Linda? Mom's shoulders sagged. Brittany was behind on rent. So you used Grandma's care stipend? I asked. It wasn't like that, Mom said quickly. Brittany was supposed to help more. She intended to, but things got complicated. Complicated? I repeated. She signed visits she never made. Dad exhaled. Your mother and I thought if Brittany had a little support, she'd stabilize. And Grandma? Silence. That silence was the answer. Grandma had been the justification. Brittany had been the priority. My phone buzzed in my hand. A text from my husband, Aaron. Everything okay? You've been gone a while. I stared at it, suddenly aware of how tired I was. Aaron had spent months watching me come home with damp sleeves from washing Grandma's hair, with back pain from hauling laundry, with irritation I couldn't explain because explaining meant admitting my family had trained me to accept crumbs and call it love. I typed, "Not okay, I'll call soon." Mom saw me texting and stiffened. "Who are you telling now?" "My husband. This doesn't concern him. It concerns him every time I miss dinner, because you guilt me into doing Brittany's job." Brittany wiped her face with the heel of her hand. "You love acting superior because you married someone dependable." I turned to her. "No, I love being married to someone who tells the truth." Her face twisted. Dad stepped between us. Everybody stop. Natalie, you're going to call that nurse and say emotions ran high. No. You will not destroy your sister over a paperwork. Mistake. It wasn't paperwork. It was 42 lies. Mom's voice went cold. If you do this, don't expect us to forget it. There it was. The threat I had spent my whole life obeying. Be good or lose us. Be quiet or be difficult. Carry the weight or be cast as cruel for setting it down. Grandma reached for the side table, fumbling. My checkbook. I knelt beside her. What do you need? My checkbook, she said again. Mom's head snapped up. Mom, no. Grandma looked at her daughter with a steadiness that made the room shrink. How much of my money did you give Brittany? Mom's mouth opened, but no sound came out. Dad answered, barely audible. The stipend went directly to Brittany. Grandma closed her eyes. And who arranged that? I asked. Dad rubbed his forehead. Linda submitted the caregiver designation. My mother's face hardened. Because I am her daughter. Grandma opened her eyes. Then you should have protected me. Mom recoiled like she'd been slapped. Brittany grabbed her purse again. I can't do this. No, Grandma said. The words stopped her at the doorway. Grandma pushed herself upright in the recliner, frail but furious. You will bring back my house key. Brittany blinked. What? My key, now. Mom whispered, Mom, don't be dramatic. Grandma didn't look away from Brittany. I sat here on Tuesdays listening for footsteps that never came. I wondered what I had done wrong. Bring back my key. For the first time all afternoon, Brittany had no performance ready. She dug into her purse, yanked the key ring free, and worked Grandma's brass key loose with shaking fingers. She dropped it on the coffee table. It landed beside the pharmacy receipts with a small final sound. Then Brittany walked out, slamming the door hard enough to rattle the window panes. Mom followed her without looking at Grandma. Dad lingered, one hand on the knob. Natalie, you don't understand what it's like to have two daughters and one always struggling. I looked at Grandma's key on the table. No, I said, you don't understand what it's like to be the one who isn't allowed to struggle. Dad had no answer. After he left, Grandma and I sat in the quiet house. Finally, she whispered, Will you help me change the locks? I called Aaron from Grandma's porch while she sat inside with the chain latched, staring at the key Brittany had left behind like it was a dead insect. He didn't ask if I was overreacting. He said, I'm coming with tools. By 8 that night, Grandma had new locks, a doorbell camera, and a casserole Aaron picked up because none of us had eaten. Grandma kept apologizing for all the fuss until Aaron crouched beside her recliner and said, Margaret, locks aren't fuss, they're peace. She cried then, but differently. The next weeks were ugly. The agency suspended Brittany from receiving payments pending review. Adult Protective Services interviewed Grandma twice. My mother called me cruel, then disloyal, then finally stopped calling at all. Dad sent one text that said, Your mother is devastated. I replied, Grandma was devastated first. He never answered. Brittany had to repay part of the stipend. Not all at once, not dramatically, but enough that the fantasy cracked. Mom tried to argue the money had stayed in the family until the caseworker asked whether Margaret had benefited from it. After that, Mom got quiet. The hardest part was not losing my family's approval. It was realizing how little it had ever protected me. I had lived for years believing if I just helped enough, gave enough, stayed reasonable enough, they would finally see me. But they had seen me perfectly. They saw I would carry what they dropped and ask for nothing but a thank you they could withhold. So I stopped carrying it alone. We hired a licensed caregiver for 3 mornings a week, using Grandma's benefits properly. I put my name on the agency contact list, but not as the emergency solution to everyone else's convenience. Aaron and I made a schedule I could actually survive. No more leaving work in a panic because Mom had decided her bridge club mattered more than Grandma's medication refill. And Grandma changed too. At first, she kept asking if she was causing trouble. Then one Thursday, she pointed to the little notebook on her side table and said, "Write this down. I want chicken salad, not soup. I am allowed to want things." I wrote it down. By the following spring, her house felt different, brighter somehow. The curtains were washed. The porch rail was repaired. The visit log sat in a folder by the phone, filled out by people who actually came through the door. Mom visited twice, both times stiff and tearful, both times waiting for Grandma to make it easier for her. Grandma didn't. She was polite. She offered coffee. But when Mom said, "I just wish we could go back to how things were," Grandma looked at her and said, "I don't." That was the moment I knew she would be okay. Brittany sent one apology by text. It was mostly about how stressed she had been and how everything spiraled. I didn't respond right away. A month later, I wrote back, "I hope you get help, but I won't pretend you didn't hurt her." She sent nothing after that. 6 months later, Grandma turned 87 in her backyard under a yellow umbrella Aaron set up between the maple trees. She wore the blue cardigan she saved for church and bossed me about cutting the cake slices too big. The new caregiver, Rosa, brought flowers. A neighbor brought deviled eggs. Aaron took pictures while Grandma laughed with her head tipped back, sunlight catching the silver waves in her hair. At one point, she reached for my hand. "You came on Tuesdays," she said. My throat closed. "Yes," I whispered. "I did." She squeezed my fingers, stronger than I expected. I knew. For so long, I thought being seen meant waiting for the people who ignored me to finally look. But sometimes it means sitting beside the one person who remembers the truth, while the afternoon sun warms your hands and a locked front door keeps the old lies outside. If you've ever been the one expected to carry the weight in silence, share your story in the comments. I read every one. If this story stayed with you, tell me in the comments what you would have done in my place. And if you want more stories like this, please like the video and subscribe to the channel.